Airports across the world are empty. Airlines across the globe are grounding planes, laying off workers and scrambling to preserve cash as measures to contain the coronavirus outbreak prompts flight bans and wipes out global travel demand. The International Air Transport Association, IATA, said recently that airlines will need emergency measures to get through the crisis and is asking governments to consider extending lines of credit, reducing infrastructure costs, and easing taxes. On the program, the survival of domestic airlines in Nigeria post the COVID-19 pandemic is our focus. Plus, Enugu Airport gets an extension date on the ongoing repairs. A warm welcome to Aviation this week on Channels Television. I'm Bukola Joe Oketumbi.
In recent weeks, countries across the world have closed their borders or set down stringent entrance requirements. Many people have found themselves stranded abroad. In Bolivia, hundreds of tourists from Europe and Asia who were trapped in the country have been taken back to their homes after the Andean country closed its borders to contain the coronavirus outbreak. More than 400 tourists from France, Italy, Belgium, Korea, and United States left the city of La Paz to return to their countries after obtaining special permits to leave Bolivia. The tourists boarded a direct flight to Paris, and the evacuation was organized in coordination with the European Union. Within the check-in area of the El Dorado Airport area, more than 1,000 stranded tourists bedded down for the night on Spartan cots as Colombia settled in for a 19-day quarantine meant to stem the spread of coronavirus, which has grounded international flights. The would-be travelers from countries including Chile and Spain are hoping for special flights home. The government of President IVANA, like many around the world, has introduced strict measures to combat the spread of coronavirus. Flights are blocked, long-distance transport is restricted, and Colombians are to stay home until mid-April. Many tourists were caught out by the closures, unable to find flights home amid rescheduling and price increases. In Singapore, the last flight from the country to Bangkok took off with only a few dozen passengers on Saturday, March 28th, with mostly Thai citizens seeking to get home to ride down the spreading pandemic. Singapore's Changi Airport was practically empty, with only one check-in counter open for passengers for dropping their luggage inside the terminal. Airline staff stood around without customers to care for. Almost all passengers wore face masks and some wore gloves. Turkey is the next stop, as it has also halted all international flights and limited domestic flights as part of measures to contain a fast-growing coronavirus outbreak, as the number of cases jumped by a third in a day. Turkey's Istanbul airport, one of the world's largest and busiest, was deserted with empty check-in counters and blank screens. Turkish Airlines CEO Bilal Eksi said domestic flights would only operate to and from 14 big cities as of midnight Saturday. He said passengers will need to receive permission from the governor's office after 1400 GMT. The rate of infections in Turkey has outstripped many other countries in the last 2 weeks. Back home in Nigeria, the Murtala Mohammed Airport too is empty, airline counters lonely, and small businesses as well as eateries locked. It is also the same for the General Aviation Terminal. The Zulu Hall is empty, and what is popularly called Arik Terminal is also empty. This is not unconnected to the suspension of flights by the 8 domestic airlines to the country, who have cited plummeting passenger demands owing to the COVID-19. This comes barely 2 weeks after the federal government closed the Lagos, Abuja, Kano, and Port Harcourt airports to international flights. Air Peace Arik Air, Aero, Dana Air, Ibom Air, Max Air, Asman, and the Overland Airways had stopped regional operations weeks earlier, citing low demand and concerns over the COVID-19 pandemic. Perhaps one of the downsides of closed terminals and airline and ancillary services is a massive downsizing looming in the airline industry, as domestic carriers ground no fewer than 76 planes amid the coronavirus pandemic. IATA had earlier warned that Nigeria was at risk of losing 2.2 million overseas-bound passengers and $434 million revenue loss if the coronavirus spread continues to escalate. The association, that represents some 290 airlines, said the gloomy outlook was not peculiar to Nigeria, but spreads across the region and warrants emergency support for the airlines. IATA, in a recent market analysis, appealed to governments in Africa and the Middle East to provide emergency support to airlines as they fight for survival due to the evaporation of air travel demand as a result of COVID-19 crisis.
On our interview segment, our guest for last week continues his conversation. This time, the Managing Director of Aero Contractors, Captain Ado Sanusi, says government must help the airlines survive with a smart bailout.
We have had something similar, which is the Ebola virus, which affected air travel. And that actually caused a lot of airlines at that time to go under. Now we are having a scale that is global. International airlines are grounding their aircrafts, some up to 70 to 80% capacity, some totally suspending flights. This effect will be, there will be a domino effect on the local airlines, and the local airlines will not absorb the shock, because if government doesn't come to us to give us rescue. Now, I mentioned a smart bailout, which is very, very important. We can think that the federal government is going to put 1 trillion into the economy, and maybe aviation will get some part of that. But it is quite important to look at how bailouts were done last time, and who actually gained with the bailout. So if I say smart bailout, I mean that companies that actually suffered losses are given either grants or loans. And they have to show that, yes, because of COVID-19, I could not pay salary for, let's say, 2 months. And because of COVID-19, I could not generate funds to do a project of repairing this aircraft. So those, when the bailout comes, those bailouts should be specific to those losses that the airlines have suffered. Because if you give, and it's all over the world for that matter, if you give a bailout, it might go into being used as dividend payment for shareholders, or investing into other equipment, which is totally defeats the essence of bailout. Bailouts are supposed to help mitigate the losses the airlines have done, if it's in grants or if it's in loans, which can be paid over a period of time with very low interest rates.
High above the Arctic Circle in northern Norway, people from all over the world come to explore the Arctic landscape. March and April are normally the busiest tourist months and are vital for local businesses. But this year, the small town of LYNGEN is empty as the people stay away because of the coronavirus crisis. In a normal year, thousands of people come to the LYNGEN area to hike, ski, climb, and if they are lucky, see the northern lights. But in the last week, almost all bookings have been cancelled. Matt KVIEN, who runs LYNGEN Adventure that organizes the tours, now spends his days dealing with cancellations.
We've had total cancellations of all activities and overnight stays. So much has happened in the last few days. It's almost difficult to think back over it. We're in a full crisis situation here and are trying to find a way forward.
Another business affected is the Magic Mountain Lodge, which has existed for 10 years, but now bookings for the remainder of March and the first 2 weeks of April had been cancelled. Unless she receives help from the government, she's not sure her business will survive.
I was expecting to have high season, and in the beginning of last week, I forgot the days now, but then this virus information just started to come, and in 4 days I had no guests anymore. So I haven't talked to the bank so much yet, and so I don't know what. And they are talking a lot about some how they're going to help us and the small companies around. So it depends on what help we get in the end. Yeah, but otherwise, no.
The Norwegian government has announced that it will launch a series of measures to aid industries that have been hard hit by the coronavirus outbreak, including airlines and hotels, without elaborating on the specific proposals. From Norway to the tourist hotspots of Miami in the United States, which is now under lockdown in a bid to stop the spread of the deadly virus. The city's fabled Ocean Drive is nearly empty and restaurants and cafes remain closed. For a resident here, it's a beautiful time.
It's absolutely beautiful. It's like the day after Christmas or New Year's Eve. The weather's the best of this time of year. There's not very many people. We have plenty of space, and it's fantastic being here, yes.
Bars, restaurants and nightclubs in Miami are closed, putting an end to the party for thousands of American university students looking to celebrate the spring break in the sun-soaked city.
Well, for locals this is a big relief because spring break was really wild here, but just the reason because all this happening, when you know what's the thing, then it's really sad, especially because they closed the beach from 5th to 15th Street.
PEJICIC and her husband were working in the restaurant business until the coronavirus spread to the U.S. shores.
Well, I don't have my job for next 30 days. Yesterday I was told that my restaurant that I work at is actually closed for 30 days. Same with my husband, so basically we are with no jobs for a month. So that's the big change for us, but everything else we're going to stay home as much as we can, and then we'll go through this probably. I hope the best.
The measures, which come at the peak of Miami's tourist season, will also keep movie theaters, gyms and other businesses shut to discourage gatherings of more than 10 people, which authorities fear could spread the virus.
Sí, muchísima menos gente.
Yes, there's a lot less people, a lot less. People are not going out. We're staying near the gardens and people are fighting over water or over food. The supermarkets have been ransacked. Everything is empty. And it is not normal.
Estaban los supermercados.
Nada, nos ha afectado de forma muy.
Well, this all happened really quickly. We had no idea something like this was going to happen. And I really don't know how we're going to get out of this situation. We're trying to contact the airlines to see if they have a way out of this situation. The whole system seems to have collapsed because a lot of people are in the same situation as us. We came here to Ocean Drive to get a little distracted because the situation is very worrying.
Miami's famed beaches will also be impacted, with a large section of the South Beach now empty after it was closed off to visitors to prevent infections. Miami's economy relies heavily on tourism.
The Akano Ibiam International Airport is located in Enugu State. It's one of the 5 international airports in the country, operated by the Federal Airport Authority of Nigeria. The airport is strategically located in Enugu to serve the southeastern part of the country. The federal government had announced on August the 24th, 2019, that the airport will be closed for the reconstruction of its runway. The airport's bad runway, landing aids and the presence of a market nearby, which attracts birds and had led to constant bird strike on aircraft, were the reasons adduced for the closure. Authorities also added that the state radio mast was wrongly placed and was directly facing the runway. To ensure that the work is done, President Muhammadu Buhari gave an approval of 10 billion naira special intervention fund, and in the course of the reconstruction, some buildings have had to give way. December 2019 was earlier set as deadline for the completion of the repairs before the Minister of Aviation HADI SIRIKA announced that it would be concluded by Easter 2020, but now the date of completion is changing.
You could see that the job is at 92-93% completed. Unfortunately, however, we are more than sad to announce today that because the workers who ought to be on site, as you could see, they had to close down shop to go back to their families in view of this COVID-19. We had planned to surmount this problem again. We had pushed as far as we can to defeat this monster COVID-19, to deliver this project before Easter. And we're on our way to achieving that. We needed only 6 days, 7 days to deliver this project, as you could see, and as you are witnesses to.
The minister also used the occasion to advocate that everyone gets involved in curbing the spread of COVID-19.
We think that life is much more important. What we're trying to do here is to save life, to create a new environment for safe operations. And we would not in the process also lose other lives. This monster, human beings will overcome it through the special intervention of God and through our own acts, including social distancing, improved hygiene, washing our hands, use of masks, and avoiding going out and social gatherings.
Federal Airports Authority of Nigeria insists that the airports will only be open when the existing safety and security concerns to flight operations are tackled. "274 Israeli nationals have been repatriated from the Murtala Mohammed International Airport in Lagos and the Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport, Abuja, to Israel. Nigeria's domestic carrier Air Peace airlifted 65 passengers from Lagos and 209 passengers from Abuja with a Boeing 777 with registration number 5NBWI.
And I thank the federal government of Nigeria for making sure that the vestiges of the past remain in the past.
Israel said it evacuated its citizens because of the fears of increasing spread of the coronavirus pandemic in Nigeria.
We are hoping that every man can come back to their country and for their country to offer their help. A lot of the Nigerians came back to Nigeria recently. Israelis are doing the same. There have been cases of corona in Israel. They've been treating it. There are people healing in a very fast rate, similar to what we saw in China and in other countries that took control over the situation. We are very proud in how Israel is handling it. Almost all Israelis from almost all over the world are returning home. This is a very big operation. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the local governments of the countries that we are stationed in are helping us a lot. But I think no country has offered us this great help as in Nigeria with a Nigerian airline company.
In 60 years of the diplomatic relations and friendship between the State of Israel and the Federal Republic of Nigeria. What you have seen today, it was an historic moment. It was an historic flight. For the first time ever, a Nigerian airline was flying with more than 200 Israelis, women, children, and elderly people because of the regulation and the crisis that is right now all over the globe, and of course also in Nigeria, the coronavirus crisis.
Ethiopian Airlines has said it will focus on hauling cargo in the face of the COVID-19 pandemic. The chief executive officer of the airline said as it battles the devastating impact of the coronavirus on global aviation, hauling cargo is now the strategy to keep the continent's biggest carrier above ground.
We have refocused our energy, time and resources on cargo operation. As you can see, we have 10 777 freighters like this and 2 737 freighters. So we are using them all over the world. They are working 24/7.
The Dubai government has announced that Emirates Airline will receive infusion of new equity to help the airline company overcome the coronavirus pandemic. Dubai Crown Prince Hamdan Al Maktoum said, "Today, we renew our commitment to support a success story that started in the mid-1980s to reach its goal of sitting on the throne of global aviation. The government of Dubai is committed to fully supporting Emirates at this critical time and will inject equity into the company." Finally, on Newsflash, 6 Italian COVID-19 patients have arrived for treatment in Germany in what is described as a sign of solidarity. A German Air Force Medivac Airbus landed at Cologne's military airport after it took off from the northern Italy city of Bergamo. The town lies in the region of Lombardy, which has borne the brunt of Italy's contagion. According to the German army, the 6 critically ill patients will be taken for treatment to civilian hospitals across the state of North Rhine-Westphalia. Before we go, we'll bring you a farewell speech from a flight attendant on her last flight in the midst of the coronavirus pandemic.
Finally, I'd like to just say that there's every chance possible this could be our last operating flight, and most certainly is the last for the foreseeable future. As crew, we've called the skies our home for so long, it's a little surreal knowing we've come back down to earth this one last time. To our guests, thank you so much for your smiles and interactions. It's you who help to make our days so enjoyable, and in a world full of choice, we're incredibly thankful that you choose Virgin Australia to be a part of your travel plans. We're especially grateful for your loyalty and your custom. On behalf of the entire Virgin Australia team, we wish you all the best during these testing times. Please take care of yourselves, your neighbours, and stay safe. Now to my crew, words don't come close to describing the family bond that we all share. The friendships, hardships, laughter and tears. You've all contributed to enriching my time here, and I count myself extremely lucky to have had the pleasure of working alongside you all. It's remarkable how we've all banded together during this chaos, and I'm so proud of how you continue to hold your heads high. Remember that tough times don't last, tough people do. We're all in this together. So, on behalf of Captain Alistair Marshall, First Officer Craig Dixon, your cabin crew, Ella, Jenny, Hannah, myself, and the entire New Zealand network, thank you so much from the bottom of our hearts. We truly hope to see you in the sky again soon.
This is where we close on the show. See you next week, God's willing. I'm Bukola Joe Oketumbi.